Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome, beautiful souls. I am your host, Linda Joy, and I am so excited to have a special guest and a dear friend back for another episode. Have you ever known, felt, or sensed something that defies rational explanation? I know you're nodding your head right now. Or maybe you've wondered how your intuition is able to know things that should be impossible to know. Now, these are things I've been curious about all my life, drawn to all my life. And that's why I'm so drawn to the work of my friend, Kim Chestney. In this inspiring conversation, renowned intuition expert Kim Chestney will draw on the latest findings in quantum physics to present a multidimensional exploration of the whole spectrum of the intuitive experience, from everyday occurrences such as hunches and gut feelings to impossible phenomena such as telepathy, remote viewing, and precognition. She is the author of the Illumination Code, Radical Intuition, and the Psychic Workshop. As the founder of IntuitionLab and the Create Festival, her work raises awareness about the importance of insight in the evolution of individual and world consciousness. Working for nearly 20 years in the tech sector, Chesney has led initiatives with some of the top thought leaders, technology companies, and universities in the world. Welcome, my friend.
Oh, thanks for having me back, Linda. It's great to be here.
Well, I love your work. You've written for Aspire magazine. You've been in my events. We play and partner because the reason I love your message, one, you make it so accessible to everyone. I have had all your books. I have the Illumination Code in my hand.
Yay.
And what I love, though, about your work, never mind that you're a teacher, teaching us all of us who are on the path of self-discovery, how to, really ignite our intuition. You're working within companies and organizations. And I'm like, yes, the world is changing. They're letting Kim come in and talk about this stuff that is going to change the world. So let's go back for a moment, because your new title is called The Illumination Code, 7 Keys to Unlock Your Quantum Intelligence. And when I saw the words, the Illumination Code, I was like, ooh, tell me what that means to you and why you chose that as the name of the book.
Yeah, I really ended up loving the title of this book, and it sort of presented itself to me as I was writing it. And, one of the questions that so many people were asking me after I wrote Radical Intuition, and they started having these extraordinary intuitive experiences, were how are they actually possible? How is it possible for me to think of someone and then they just call me on the phone? Or how's it possible for me to know something's going to happen in the future and it actually does? So, I felt that for my readers and for myself, the real next step in this work was really to explain what's really going on with our intuition. How is it possible? Are these angels whispering in our ears? Is there some superpower we're invoking, or is it just a natural part of life? And the latter is really the conclusion that I came to. And I went down sort of this rabbit hole of quantum physics and really started studying with some great, extraordinary physicists who understand that there's a role for intuition in consciousness that's explained by science now. So once we started looking at something called the quantum field or the non-local field, we realized that there is, and science is telling us today, that there is an invisible field, a worldwide web of information and energy that connects all living beings. It's invisible. We might not be able to sense it, but it's there, and it enables us to communicate beyond time, beyond space, in this sort of ever-connected internet of the subatomic world. So once we looked at this internet, this beautiful quantum field, and boiled down to its contents, it turns out it's all full of this beautiful inner wisdom built on information and our inner guidance and all of these things that we turn into when we trust our intuition. So it's sort of this beautiful picture of a web of illuminating code that feeds us all through our intuitive guidance and connects us to the truth of the world and the past and the present and the future and each other. So the Illumination Code was then born as this really wonderful thing that our intuition reads to connect us with each other and all things.
So what I'm hearing is it means that we all have access to this field.
Absolutely. It's every single person. It's embedded in us. You don't need to be a psychic person, or you don't have to sit on the top of a mountain and meditate for 3 days to get access to this field. It's embedded in us. It's part of you. It's who you are, and you have intrinsic access to all of its wisdom.
So as part of connecting, doing the work to release what's covering um, or covering the frequency.
Mm, yeah, yeah. So the trick is, with this Illumination Code and tapping into it, which is really part of this idea of quantum intelligence, is we have to step away from our rational thinking, logical mind that we're so used to embracing here. That's quite linear, right? Our logical mind is designed to navigate this three-dimensional reality we live in, where 1 + 2 = 3. Up is down, and everything makes sense in a linear context. But our intuition, it turns out, is more of a quantum phenomenon, and it behaves like the quantum world. So when we boil down all of our atoms and molecules and particles into the quanta that actually makes up the deep dimension of quantum physics, we see that intuition functions just like the quantum dimension, where impossible things are suddenly possible, things that particles that are on the other side of the world still communicate, even though they're separated by time and space, and things are able to communicate instantaneously without any time between them, even though they're far apart. So suddenly all these things, these supernatural phenomenon throughout history, the psychic ability and empathy and all of the sort of magic of genius and creativity, now suddenly has a real viable explanation in terms of modern science. So it's really exciting.
I can imagine how amazing this whole journey must have been as you dove deeper into the quantum energies while writing this book. It must have been like so expansive. Like I'm feeling it as, and you did a deep dive to write this
Yeah.
book.
Yeah, it took me a year to write it. And honestly, I've always had a little passion for quantum physics. I must admit, when I was in college, I was like a math class short of a minor in physics. Just math wasn't my thing, but always had a little passion brewing for quantum physics. And it was really, this book gave me the opportunity to really do a deep dive into it and sort of translate these really deep concepts into, boiling it down into, everyday concepts that, you and I can just process and think about without having a PhD in physics, right? So it was a really hard book to write. I'm not gonna lie, I had to do a lot of research, and it blew my mind. Like, I had no idea that I was gonna really like tap into what ended up being there. Like, I had a hunch that intuition was really part of this whole landscape of quantum dynamics, but I did not realize how big of a role it actually played, and how really important it is to the expansion of our consciousness. So it changed the whole way that I view intuition and the world. And I've been studying intuition for like 20, 30 years now. So it's really revolutionary, I think, and such a breakthrough in the way that we understand that deep wisdom that guides us every day.
And I love the combination of what you merged into the book because, I'm looking at just one of the sections, a part of you knows everything, right? So you not only are you teaching, but then you give things called, you share the illumination keys, which we're going to talk about after the break, but then you do labs.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, ooh, I love books that ask me to go deeper
Yes.
and
Yeah.
guide me. To me, it's how I personally integrate. So I wanted to share, even though there's some research based throughout the book, this is a very invitational book. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's all of my book. I say I really share that same philosophy because all of my books are designed to be not just reading books, but doing books. I want you to experience this for yourself. I want readers to go in and witness this magic. So all of these books have labs and workshops and experiments and ways that you can activate this stuff in your life and actually participate in it consciously, not just sit around and wait for something extraordinary to happen. Let's open it up and live in that space. So there's over 30 different exercises in this book to help you tap into your intuition and personally experience that magic so that you can start to trust it and live by it every day. Don't just take it from me. I want you to go out and experience it yourself.
Oh, I love that. That's what I love about your work, your message, when you write for Aspire. It's things that we can implement and learn on our own
Yes.
to deepen our relationship with self and our intuition.
Yes.
So we're going to take our first break, ladies, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the illumination keys, how the universe is always speaking to us in different ways, and so much more. So please stay tuned for the rest of the conversation with Kim Chesney. You can learn more about her magical work at intuition-lab.com. We'll be back in a moment, my friends.
Inspiration for a Woman's Soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and with me today is Kim Chestney, author of the Illumination Code, Radical Intuition, and the Psychic Workshop. And today we are here talking about intuition, the quantum field, and we're about to dive into the illumination keys that she shares in her new book, The Illumination Code, 7 Keys to Unlock Your Quantum Intelligence. So let's talk about the 7 illumination keys. Are they meant to be linear and gone through in order?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
start.
Yeah. So that's one of the first questions people ask about this book. And, granted, if your intuition calls you to go through and read the keys in a different order, by all means, I'd always defer to people's intuition. But I did write it to be a journey. It was a journey that sort of starts with this first key of understanding that a part of you knows everything, and then moving through these different layers to go deeper and deeper into that inner dimension, and ultimately taking us to sort of the deepest places of mystery in the final chapters.
I love that. And one of the things I'm looking at, one of them, like I love like number 6. Like it jumps out at me. And like I was like one of those women, like, I want to know what that one means. It empowers you. Illumination key number 6 empowers you to do impossible things.
Mhm,
And I think sometimes we limit ourselves with our small mind. And when
mhm.
I read that, just that phrase, without even diving into the key, feels so expansive and inviting to me because in my heart, plus my own lived experience, I know we can do impossible things. So let's talk about just that one for a moment. What does it mean to you to do impossible things?
Yeah, and that's really one of the goals of this book is to not just, state that we can do impossible things, but hey, let's do some of them, right? So the impossible things that intuition tells us to do, think of every supernatural phenomenon that, people would have told you was impossible, or were people making things up, or it was a cult or scary, or all of that stuff that kind of got wrapped up in psychic development and psychic ability throughout the last centuries. This happened because people didn't understand it, that we labeled these mysteries as supernatural occult because the laws of physics that we know in this reality just don't apply to them, so it seemed impossible. But now, since the quantum revolution, and we understand what is really going on to some degree in the quantum dimension, and these things are suddenly possible. So yes, you can see the future. It's possible. I start my book off with a story of a gypsy who predicted I was going to be in jury duty in 1994, and I was. So I mean, I personally witnessed, there's no way this woman could have known it. It was 3 years before it ever happened. And I was in a different country at the time. So when things like that start to happen, people have these extraordinary experiences, it tells us there's something more going on in reality than we understand. And what we know now is that things that we once thought were impossible, with this existence of this quantum field, this beautiful field of illuminating inner code, we now have access to the past, to the future, to things that are happening in other places. So all of these impossible things are not so impossible anymore.
Isn't it so true? Isn't it? I think we can all think back on our life and see that we did something impossible, even though at the time we didn't believe it was possible. So that's something within each of us.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Even the callings we have, like, you'll hear stories of, people were like, I'm just called to do this extraordinary thing. I'm going to be a rock star. I'm going to be president of the United States. All of these different things people have callings to that people are like, you could never do that. That's impossible. But at the same time, they have a calling inside them. And you hear these stories, people go out and they do these extraordinary things because their intuition was telling them that they could. Not that we all can, but we all have a calling inside of us, and only we know what we're made for. So when we listen to that, whether you're called to be a veterinarian or a parent or a nun or a rock star, whatever our calling is, listening to that can help us really align with our path and purpose and achieve our mission in this world.
Oh, I believe that to the deepest part of me. Aspire magazine was given to me in a dream, and that kept waking me
Mm.
up for 3 months. But I didn't have the intuitive connection that I do now. So I just kept thinking it was an annoying dream. Why am I dreaming in front of a magazine? But one day I sat down and put it all on paper and stuck it up on my bulletin board and kind of said to the universe, I have no idea what this means, so you better show me. And within 6 months, the first print issue was born with no marketing or publishing experience. Here we are 18 years later. That was, I believe now, the universe knows I am a visual person. That's why it was delivering it that way. And I took action. That's me honoring what I received. Do you feel a lot of people struggle with that part? They receive intuitive guidance or the next step on their soul's purpose or whatever it may be, but then they let the rational mind take over.
Mm.
Uh-oh.
So, oh, yes, yes, yes. We do that so often. We second guess our intuition or rationalize ourselves out of it. We've been taught to do it. It's sort of part of the conditioning that we've been raised in, taught to think by our sort of left brain mind, that's if seeing is believing, and this is, if it's not real, it doesn't exist. But meanwhile, your intuition is giving you all these clues and signals from this ephemeral place. So learning to trust our intuition, recognizing it and following it, that's the hardest part, really. And I think things like dreams, things like sudden insights, epiphanies, callings, these are all sort of, carrying cards for our intuition. And once we can recognize it, they're actually real things that we need to pay attention to, then we can start to trust them more and honor them and actually have the courage to follow them in our life.
Oh, now it's for me, it's like a game. Like if I lose my keys, which I did when I was in Costa Rica, we had parked at a I don't know, what do you call it? One of those parking lots at the airport. And then we were gone for a month. And I remember leaving that parking lot at midnight going, Linda, put the car keys where you won't lose them for the month in Costa Rica.
Mm.
But I hid them so damn well that the night we're leaving Costa Rica, I'm like, oh my God, we're going to be landing in the middle of winter at midnight again. And I don't know where the damn keys are. But if you stress about something, you're blocking the flow. You're not going to
Yes.
proceed. So I said, I released this and I'll wait for you to tell me where they are. Do you know 6 o'clock the next morning? It said, I heard so clear. They're in the hidden zipper on the right side of the main suitcase. I'm like,
Ah, I
I
love
was,
it.
I want to tell you what I said. I go, there is no right zipper on the inside of the suitcase. Like I was arguing. Dana goes, you should know by now. I went in, it was this little side zipper. I'm like, I do not remember that consciously.
Wow.
That's intuition though, right? I
Yes.
I listened, But if I tried to force it, like, where's the keys? I feel like and I'm curious what your thoughts are. Like, I feel like I close the frequency when I do that.
Yes, and I love this story. This is such a great example, and it's so ironic. I actually have a story in Illumination Code from one of my students who has a very similar story about finding lost keys. And so this is a great practice. Anytime you lose your keys, they were trying and trying to find their keys and they couldn't find it. So finally she said, "You know what? Everybody just stopped trying to find the keys." And she just went in and meditated and she's like, "I'm gonna relax." And it just dropped into her head. They're under the seat. And she
Ah,
went, and sure they were under the seat, right? So what's the lesson? We got trying too hard, focusing hard, grasping too much actually pushes what we're looking for further away.
yeah, and I've had so many of those experiences. So now, of course, I trust
Right.
immediately, but I can remember the days that I struggled to trust. So what I want to talk about is kind of continuing on this conversation because that's how the universe speaks to me. I just receive hearing, I see signs, numbers, and I go, oh my God. So it's like I have this open communication now. For those that are newer on the path, what are some of the ways the universe is always speaking to us? It's one of my favorite topics, by the way.
Yes, me too. Yeah, so it's funny. I just did a presentation on how the universe speaks to us both from the inside and from the outside. And I really love this topic because it brings in things like signs and synchronicities that we witness in our daily life. Because oftentimes we don't associate that with intuition. We just think they're just some sort of, revelation that comes to us. But in reality, it's very much deeply tied to our intuition. So um, we have this whole breadth of sort of inner guidance that comes to us through our body, mind, heart, and spirit. All these different ways we can get intuitive impressions, intuitive thoughts, intuitive feelings that support us as we make our life decisions and meet people and go down our life's path. But as we're doing this, there's also this whole beautiful symphony of signs that come to us from the quote unquote outside. And what's so interesting with quantum physics is we realize that just like there's not really any time, there's not really before and after the future and the past, because that's really just a relative perception of our subjective place in time. It's like we're flowing down a beautiful river that already exists. Our little boat is just moving through it in time. So it's kind of like that with the stream of consciousness, right? But it's also like that in terms of our reality. We don't just have an inner world and an outer world. That perception is also an experience of relativity. It's all really one world. And our intuition speaks to us from what we perceive as our inside through these thoughts and feelings and inspirations, etc. But it also speaks to us from the outside with the signs and synchronicities that we notice. So intuition is so much tied to our attention and the things that arrive in our life out of nowhere. So when the thoughts and feelings or sensations drop into your body and your mind out of nowhere, there's a good chance that's coming from somewhere. The quantum field, your intuition, that illumination code speaking to you. But then think of signs from the outside. Say you like angel numbers. You look at the clock and you happen to notice the clock every day at 111 or 222 or 333 or 444. How is that happening? Your intuition's pulling your attention to an outer sign to give you validation that there's something deeper, more magical going on in your life. Maybe to give you a little sign for that perfect moment, something, a little pat on the back, you're thinking something good, doing something good, get a little sign. These kinds of things happen all around us in the world outside us too. So I really encourage people to look within you for your inner signs, but also keep your eyes open for those outer signs where life gives you validations.
I love that because I'm, for one, I've always been a numbers gal.
Mhm.
And one of in Heart Rocks, like I always say, love is all around us. You're just going to be open to it.
Yep.
So of course I find heart-shaped everything out in nature. But one of the things I do also, and it's a kind of a game I started playing when I started waking up to my intuitive gifts about 15 years ago, is I always say thank you.
Mm.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that
Mm.
sign. Thank you. It's like
Mhm.
I want to build that relationship. So for me, it's fun. And now my granddaughter will go, Amma, it's 333. Amma, it's 1111. So creating the next generation.
I
So
love that.
Oh, I think she is so wide open. She's extraordinary. I
Yeah.
learned so much from her. She's going to be 13. We're going to take
Oh.
another break, Kim. When we come back, why don't we talk about that part of, it says a part of you knows everything. And I love that feeling of it doesn't matter who we are, what our journey is. We all have this part of us that does know everything. So let's talk about that when we come back. We'll be back in a moment, my friends. Please visit Kim at intuition-lab.com. And of course, grab a copy of her book, The Illumination Code, when you're there or on Amazon or other resale sites. We'll be back in a moment.
Are you ready to create and live the divinely guided life intended for you? A life not bound by your past or tied to a specific future. A life beyond your fears and what ifs that is filled with limitless possibilities. Experiencing an empowered life of fulfillment, joy, and connection is possible when you embrace a spiritual solutions-centered lifestyle. Through her transformational teachings and programs, Lisa Hermata, empowered Life View Guide, life transformation mentor, and founder of Love is the Seed, empowers women to break the barriers holding them back from living their sacred truth so they can find greater connection with their inner wisdom and their divine source to co-create a life that brings peace, joy, and self-acceptance. Visit loveistheseed.com for positive guidance and valuable resources to support you in embracing an empowered life view.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. Oh, I get so excited about when you're on the show because the conversation is all the stuff I love. And so right before the break, we were talking about all the different ways, angel numbers. For me, it's like heart-shaped things in nature. I have so many. And I had shared that I wanted to start building the relationship to go, I see you, I see the signs, I see this, or thank you. Do you do that too? I'm curious.
Oh, yes, all the time, and I think I love that you talk that about, like, gratitude,
Yeah.
because acknowledging it is really important, right?
Yeah, for me it is. It's like I see you. I know I'm divinely supported. And guess what happens? More magic, miracles, and blessings. Like my yearly mantra is this year is filled with magic, miracles, and abundance of blessings. And guess what? That's what it is because I'm always looking for magic, miracles, and blessings instead of, excuse my language, instead of the bullshit of life. I look for the what you focus on is what you're going to get. So I'm like, girl, let's focus on magic, miracles, and blessings. And I've had so many reach out because they know my circumstances and Dana's, 4 life-threatening surgeries in 3 years. And they're like, you guys, you were writing about all the magic and blessings that happened, even though we saw you going through these hard times. And I'm like, everyone goes through hard times. I
Mhm.
get to choose the lens of how I'm going to navigate things. And I chose to find the blessings and miracles in those circumstances. That's kind of the same,
Mhm.
right? It's like the dance with the divine.
Yeah, and, and I really do think that is such a beautiful way to look at life and recognize that everything, even the hard times, have wonderful lessons for us and really soul evolving lessons. And I love that always sunshiny, brilliant nature that you have, that you just radiate positivity no matter, what challenges you're facing. And that's a great, I think, inspiration for everyone because it really does open a portal for more of this good energy to come in and more of this sort of resonance to activate in your life. So especially when you're going through hard times, it's important to stay tuned in to that vibration.
It really does. And I want to give a little contrast because those who know me now, um, my first 30 years was depression and anxiety.
Mm,
I didn't know how to look for the blessings. I was so
mhm.
focused on everything going on wrong in my life. That's what anxiety does.
Right.
So I had to find tools, and if I can do it, ladies, you can do it too, to say, is this how I want to live the rest of my life? Is like in that dense, heavy energy of always worrying and projecting the worst case scenario. Why can't I project the best case scenario?
Yes.
And that's it. Believe me, it wasn't overnight rainbows and butterflies. I've done a
Mhm.
lot of deep work to shift how I
Mhm.
show up. And even when I had the emergency surgery and woke up in the hospital, I remember a woman coming in with no uniform on it. She was dressed in street clothes and she said, Linda? And I said, yeah. I said, I'm not sure who you are. And she said, I'm the case manager for the ICU. I said, is everything okay? She goes, yeah, I just wanted to meet you. I want to know why. Another message for me, right?
Mhm.
I wanted to know why all the nurses are requesting your room to be assigned my room. And I'm like, well, I don't know. And she says, I know. And she said, as soon as we walk in your room, they feel loved and heard, even though I
Mm.
was in the middle of crisis.
Mm.
And so they've had me come back and speak to their nurses 3 times, my surgeon.
Aw.
Um, Now, was that a choice? Yeah, I chose to
Mm.
see what my body was going through as it's healing, it's well, not oh my.
Right.
And when that was almost like the catalyst for me, Kim, of the culmination of all my inner work with intuition, with, I
Mhm.
guess, what you call the quantum field.
Mhm.
So, what is that part of us that knows everything? Is that what you call intuition? Is it combination?
Yeah. So I really look at it, this part of ourself that has access to all of the wisdom, information, guidance, everything in the universe. It's sort of like your higher self or your deeper self, your
Okay.
divine self. It's that eternal part of you that will exist beyond your our little life in these 3 dimensions, and will continue on to exist after we expand beyond this place. So it's this, our personal self, our little local self is who we are right now for this little piece of time. But the part of us that knows everything is abiding and it's enduring along with the universe and in this timeless way. So recognizing that, we are sort of a distilled down version of that. There is a greater sort of place in this funnel of consciousness that we're a singular point of. So when we go back and push up through that into the expanded consciousness and awareness, we're able to access more of this guiding wisdom than we can, just right here with our conscious thinking mind.
Oh, I love that. And that phrase, divine self speaks to me.
Hmm.
It's like that that essence of the truth of who we are
Hmm.
that we came here with. Do you
And
feel
that,
like do you feel that so we came into this physical body with this part of us that knows everything, and then we pick up layers of programming, family, schools, everything, community. And I feel like it's kind of it smothers, like that's the visual I see. And
mhm.
I feel like for myself, my work was to excavate the muck to let that inner light that was always there start to glow.
Yeah.
So is it like that? Like stuff covers up our connection, but it doesn't mean we never had the connection to our intuition. It just means it was covered in muck.
I love that. I think that's a really great analogy. When we're born, think about it as children, we're so naturally intuitive. We're in tune with realities that adults don't see. We're creative, we have imagination, and a lot of that stuff gets shut down by our education system. And as we sort of cultivate coherence with our culture and the expectations of the people around us, but it really, to me, is a full circle journey because when we come in as children, we're also really full ego. We're all ego. The whole world's about us, but we're also still really intuitive, right? So I look at it as sort of our journey of coming full circle where we learn to grow into our intuition and get our egos into balance so we can come back to that intuitive place with the ego sort of put back in check. And having sort of the best of both worlds where we can live intuitively, but also have the advantage of having really smart, brilliant minds that as human beings, we have this exceptional ability to use our minds to do wonderful, great things in this world.
I love that. I love that how you described it. Um, in your book, you talk about the 4 types of intuitive downloads. Could you give a brief overview of what those are?
Yeah. So, one of the big questions I get is how do we get more of these insights and more intuition? How do we download from this quantum field? If we're keeping this sort of metaphor that the quantum field is a cloud of wisdom, and we can download it to our local hard drives and understand it and process it and live by it. How do we get more of that? And one of my favorites is really starting with Einstein, because Einstein was a huge advocate of intuition, and he really showed us what was possible if we sort of shut off that overthinking mind. So he was a genius and one of the smartest brains that some of apparently ever existed. And what he would talk about when he had his moments of genius and insight was getting into a state that he called aimless. And I really like that word, aimlessness. So being aimless is one of the states of mind that we want to cultivate to get intuitive insight. So what he would do is he would tell stories of how he would just sit for hours on his front porch in his rocking chair, just sitting and opening his mind and having these sort of imaginative thought experiments and letting solutions drop into his mind and ideas come to him. And this is a really fertile intuitive state when we're not overthinking. The real key to listening to your intuition and receiving more of it is getting our overthinking mind, our monkey mind, out of the way so that we can hear those intuitive nudges and callings and beautiful little moments of insight. So being aimless is, as I always tell people, make more white space on your calendar. Spend time alone doing things that you love, whether it's taking a bath, going for a bike ride. How many great ideas have you gotten in the shower when you're just like, not thinking about anything? Things pop into your mind. You're opening space. I call them no mind portals. You want to have a portal for all this stuff to come in when your mind's not there, clouding your thoughts or creating all this static. So that's really one of the most important ones. But the other ones are sleep is a great way to download. People get lots of intuitive insights in the States just before sleep and just after waking. So it's a great time to have a little journal next to your bed. Ideas will pop in your head right when you wake up in the morning, or if you wake up in the middle of the night. Einstein even talked about that too. He'd wake up in the middle of the night and suddenly have a solution to the problem. Kind of like you with the key idea, right? Oh, this is where it is. It just kind of pops into your head. You don't have to think it up. The answer just comes. But yeah, and creativity is another way to do it. Just artists, creatives, they're using inspiration to guide them. Journaling, starting a journaling practice just lets that information channel and flow through you. And then the fourth kind is really the kind that I specialize in and work with. It's intentional downloads. We can intentionally call on our intuition, work with our intuition. I designed my insight card deck really to be an opportunity to intentionally engage with your intuition, receive intuitive guidance, and develop your intuition and learn your own intuitive language.
I love this. And I'm a creative, and a lot of people ask me how I can get so much work done in a short time. I'm like, this is my soul's purpose. I'm
Yes.
in that creative zone. And they're like, you just wrote 4 web pages, 3 emails. And I'm like, I'm living my truth. To me, I'm like connected to my feminine flow of creativity. And it's almost like you can bend time when you're connected.
Well, you're doing what you were made for, right? And
Mm.
and I feel this too. Like when you're made to create, if that's how you're wired, doing the things you can do that with ease, right? Some people struggle.
Yeah.
I can't write any copy at all. I can't come up with this stuff. They're just not wired for it. They're wired for something else, right? We're all wired for our own unique purpose. And part of getting in touch with your intuition is figuring out what that purpose is, so you can get in and do it with ease and effortlessly. I'm the same way. I just knock out new courses. It's just all this stuff, new ideas, new products, new books. They just come because I'm in that intuitive zone where I'm finally, it's taken me, I'm 50 years to get into the space and realize that I'm in my groove, right? So it takes some time to figure out where you're supposed to be.
I love this. I love this. We're going to take a final break and come back for the last segment, ladies. Stay tuned and be sure to visit Kim at intuition-lab.com and grab a copy of the Illumination Code. We'll be right back.
Are you struggling to grow your mission-driven business in a way that feeds your soul and fulfills your purpose? When you discover your unique human design and divine blueprint, you'll feel empowered in your business, aligned with your inner wisdom, and open to the flow of abundance and success. Nancy O'Keefe is a certified human design specialist and intuitive business coach, successfully coaching entrepreneurs for over 25 years. She is passionate about helping you understand your divine design and your personal formula for success. She knows what it takes after creating her own multi-seven-figure firm. Nancy helps women peel back the layers of who they've been taught to be to reveal who they truly are, so they can build an abundant and sustainable business that feeds their soul. Schedule your complimentary call today at nancyokeefecoaching.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations, and I wish this could go on and on because this is one of my favorite topics, and Kim is one of my favorite people. So we're in the last segment. I want to talk a little more about the insight cards because you use it as a tool to tap into your intuition. So what are they and how do they work?
Yes, they're one of my favorite things to talk about too. So, one of my callings throughout my life was really to create a card deck that helped people to develop their intuition. I love card decks. I've always been a fun collector of card decks all my life. So there's just so many beautiful decks out there. But I really wanted to design one that was created just strictly for intuitive development, to teach people their intuitive language and to let the universe speak to them. So there's this beautiful tradition called sacred seeing. And it goes back centuries actually, where people would look at divine images. Could be any kind of, it could be a piece of artwork, a painting, any sort of image that was in some sense sacred, and they would look at these images and the images would speak to them, and this would be in their minds the god, the universe, the creator speaking to them through these images with their intuition. So I was sort of riffing off that concept when I designed these cards, and I'm an artist, so I designed these all myself. They're all my own creations, and I got a chance to create each card is really an opportunity for your intuition to speak to you in a different way. So it's a 56 card deck, and it's got all these different scenarios. There's no knowledge systems attached to it. Like when you pick a card, you don't have to go look up a number or read an interpretation. It's all designed to speak uniquely to you and your intuition. So people have really, really, really loved this card deck because I can't even believe how well it works. I didn't even realize how well it was going to work until I was using them in class, and people start getting recurring cards. People get cards that have significance with different objects in their life or things they're going through. So not only do these cards like have a message for you through your intuition when you look at them, but they also are creating this opportunity for signs and synchronicities to get these validations of alignment in our life. So they turned out to be this really fun way to play with your intuition, your inner intuition and your outer intuition, and really contemplate some beauty in the process. So I have a whole free online deck on my website. You can go to kimchestney.com and you can bookmark the page and use it every day if you want. It's a beautiful way just to touch in with your intuition and get some message for the moment. I call it a little bit of guidance for any moment in life when you need it. Start a conversation with that part of you that knows everything.
I have to tell you, the imagery, Kim, is stunning.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, and I'm looking at them now. They just pull you in and draw you in. And I want to tell everyone again, when you get to her website, right up in the nav bar, it says pick a card. You'll see some of the imagery, but stunning. And I love that idea because maybe because I am a creative like you, imagery is how I receive and process.
Hmm.
So for me to look at those cards, it's, um, I don't know, it just immediately spoke to my soul because that's how I receive through
Yeah.
imagery.
Yes,
Uh,
and thank you for saying that because I'm a visual person too. I think I was naturally inclined as an artist to make these. But one of the things I found too, even if you're not a visual person, just the cards and the objects on the cards sort of open up space for physical sensations. People will get a lot of just phrases will drop into their head while they're looking at the cards because if they're more audio, even physical sensations. So it really opens up this sort of space for all of these different intuitive impressions to come through.
yeah, because everyone, like you said, earlier, everyone receives differently. I may be drawn to the imagery, but someone else who processes different, they're gonna hear something.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's what I love. I love that it serves everyone, no matter how they receive their intuitive guidance.
Yep. Yeah, that's what it's designed for, just to give anybody from any background an opportunity to really dive into their intuition.
Well, this is so beautiful. So we have about 5 minutes left, Kim. So what would you like to talk about that we didn't cover that, or that you want someone to know either about the Illumination Code or about tapping into their intuition?
Yeah, I mean, I think I wrote this book really, my hopes for writing this book was really just to help people reconnect to the magic and wonder of life. When you realize that we're living in this world of intuition, that yeah, intuition's real. All of these extraordinary things are real. Um, Reality takes on sort of a different picture when you look at things in terms of the quantum dimension, that all of these physical objects around us are sort of an illusion, and that underneath it all there's this unifying field that connects all of us. None of us are separate. We're all really connected. We're all part of the one. All of these woo woo things that we've been saying in the spiritual communities for decades are now being reinforced by science. So I really would love people to sort of accept this unity of spirituality and science and start to you know bring this curiosity into their life, and what's really going on here. How can I participate more deeply in this magic, and not be afraid? So one of the things that I'm up against a lot, when I talk about intuition with a lot of people, and there are many people out there that are still afraid of intuition. They have been conditioned, like many of us were, that it's something scary or something that's occult or something that's dangerous. And it's really tragic because it's really exactly the opposite. Intuition is the most empowering, life affirming function that we could hope for as human beings. And you're never safer in the world than when you're living by your intuition, in trust and in alignment with your intuition. Its whole job is to keep you safe and moving onward and expanding and growing with the universe in a healthy way, to get to that return to wholeness, which we're all craving, getting back to our whole self, and transcending the divisions of this world that have confused us and turned us against each other. So even just the simplest act of following your intuition is a statement of change, is a statement of unity, and brings us together. And change starts at home. So I say big things about intuition. I think intuition can change the world. I think intuition is our future. I think it is the secret to evolving our consciousness. And when people hear these things, sometimes they say, "Wow, I just think intuition doesn't exist." Well, that's part of the illusion, is that it doesn't exist, but it does. And it's one of those things that once you feel it and personally experience it for yourself, you can't deny it anymore. And at the end of the day, when we are all start making these small changes, living by our intuition, living by empathy and compassion that it brings, and the love and coherence that it guides us towards, it has no choice but to lead us to a better place in this world and make the world a better place for everyone.
I'm gonna tell you, that was so beautifully said. And I'm just gonna read this as we end because it's the vision for Intuition Lab. And it speaks to me. It says Intuition Lab is a global intuition development school. I love that. On a
Mm,
mission to explore the inner frontier. It features leading edge trainings with a modern day approach to human intuitive ability. You've dedicated your life to this.
mhm.
And I don't know, it just speaks to me. That's why we have been so connected soul to soul for so long. You've been doing this for over 20 years. You're one of the leading voices of intuitive development for our generation.
Mm.
And I'm grateful for our friendship and that you're here with us today.
Well, it was always my pleasure to be here and talk to you, and to be around your glorious glow and all the great energy that you bring into the world. So it's my pleasure to connect with you and to share in the space. And I look forward to the bright future that, we can travel into together.
Thank you, Kim. And everyone, again, please visit intuition-lab.com. click the pick a card at the top of the nav bar, and of course, grab a copy of the Illumination Code, 7 Keys to Unlock Your Quantum Intelligence. Thank you again, Kim.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a great conversation, as always, Linda.
Thank you. And until next time, my friends, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings, my friends.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.